Hello, well, welcome everybody. Looks like we're live. Can you hear me? I had to mute the audio for obvious reason, otherwise I would get, uh, my audio returning. So if you can give me a sign, if you're hearing me, okay. This is the very first live stream that I do, so we are uh, trying it out. Hello Daniele, hello Alberto, fully Italian chat. Now Krodos Audio joined in as well. Hi Charles. Oh, it's quiet. Okay. Let me turn it up a little bit. Is that better, Charles? Hopefully it's okay. So I'm trying with one low latency mode. There is also ultra latency and there is normal latency. So it is like sort of a mid kind of thing. Let's see how it works. So if you ask me a question and I take a little bit to reply, that's why. All right, just waiting a little bit for everybody to chime in. By the way, since to join in rather. By the way, since I see that Krodos Audio kindly joined in, hello guys. This is a little bit of a test. I thought it wouldn't hurt. We already did some testing with the guys from Krodos Audio yesterday, and the reason is that tomorrow we are doing another live stream at the Krodos Audio channel at 6 p.m. BST. Is that called British T? Is that called BST, British Standard Time? And where we're going to explore Krodos synth called Concept, which is a really cool synth, and I'm excited to show it to you. And so it's a little bit of an extra testing, and I thought that we could talk a little bit about logic, workflow, that kind of stuff. All right, I'm already seeing some warnings here. That's not good. Okay, I got some warning about the bitrate. Can you still hear me, guys? I think now it's gone. Can you just give me a sign if you can still hear me okay? Going to assume it's okay, although I don't know. Anyway, let's just wait for another couple of minutes. If no one else joins, I'm gonna start right away. Just a couple of extra minutes. All right, awesome. Let's do it. So, let's mute this. It's better, otherwise I get emails on my other computer. Okay, so let's do it. As you can tell, I open in front of me a track. This is an old track that I, well, actually not that old. I wrote it maybe a few weeks ago because I got to a new choir sample library and it was just a little bit of a test. And I'm gonna keep these open to show you a few, workflows that I typically use in Logic. This is, I prepared this very quickly. I put some notes on. It's going to be a very informal chat kind of thing. We're going to show you a few things. I have a huge amount of tips over here, and I don't have that much time. This is probably going to take a long time. So I'm going to go through the list and let's see where we get. The very first thing that I want to talk about. Let's see. It's probably the automation quick access, which is actually something that I very recently found out about. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. So Typically when you're working on a track in the Logic and you want to mix it, and not just in Logic, really on any digital audio workstation. Once you know have your dynamics sorted out and you did all your MIDI messaging and your mockup is sounding good, what you want to do is to want to mix it. And what a score mixer would typically do is to use a little bit of volume automation on the tracks. Maybe not as much as you would on a pop record or things like that, but you still use that a lot. And the way you, uh, oh, you have an error alert. Hello, Alpha Songs. I'm not sure. Is everybody else experiencing errors? Can you still hear me okay? Before I keep going? Okay, I'll keep going then. Sorry about that, Alpha Songs. I'm not sure. I think it's working okay for me. Okay. Okay, thank you guys. Sorry, this is a bit of testing, so mistakes are expected. That's why we're doing this. So back to what I was saying. What you want to do, what a score mixer would do is typically ride the faders a little bit, you know, where there are more exposed passages, or if you want to control any sort of volume. And you know what we tend to do it on Logic is just on clicking on A for automation, and there you have access to all the automations, that all the volume automation that you want. You can, you know, say that you're on this percussion track. You can simply come and click on it, and you can draw whatever volume automation that you want to do, and that's all good. But it's pretty nice to be able to use a fader, like a physical fader. And even if we don't have you know, even if you don't have like a big console that like a studio mixer would have, we all have some sort of, you know, mod wheel on our MIDI keyboards, or I have a little naked boards 8 faders thing where I typically keep set up volume, so MIDI volume, which is CC7, mod wheel, which is CC1, expression, which is CC11, and then vibrato, which in most cases is CC2. On Spitfire libraries is CC21, if I remember that right. On orchestral tool, is it CC3? I can't remember. I have them all written down on the notes. So we all tend to have some sort of fader, and it would be really nice to use that fader to write that. You do it is allowing this thing, which is called automation quick access. The way you have it is if you click on command comma, you can open the preferences. If not, you obviously can access it from Logic Pro X preferences, and you go to automation, brings you to the same exact thing. And here you have automation quick access, which is off by default. You can click on, and then it asks you to learn message as in MIDI message. You can learn it, and then it's waiting for you to do something. I typically use CC5 simply because I don't use it for anything else. So assuming you have this track on read, you can hold on. Something wrong? That's great. Sorry about that, guys. There's some sort of mistake. Okay. Let's try that again. Learn message. I don't know why it's doing this. It's like it's reading the automation. Let's try it on another track, on this one, for example. Okay, learn message. Why is doing this? That's a great first attempt to a live stream, isn't it? I never had this before, literally. Some automation going on. Like you read something, but it keeps reading, keeps receiving meter messages. Okay, let's do something. Let me open another project. Okay, let's reopen the same one. Sorry about that. That's the emotion of the first time. We don't need to keep this on my YouTube channel if it doesn't work out well. All right, sorry, you need to bear my computer loading up my template. Sorry about that. All right, there you go. Let's try this again. So automation, quick access on, learn message. Okay. Still doing. Is it because this is on touch for some reason? Hold on. They want it off. Let's learn it on the track stack. This should work. It's not on read. Okay, I'm about to give up on this. Edit. Did learn something. Let's try again. I know, that's why I want to assign it. And now it's crashing. Yeah, it's going really well. Sorry, guys. That's fantastic. All right, there's something wrong with that thing. I had to close logic. Cannot believe it. I'm so sorry, guys. All right, let's open another empty project that I was preparing. Are you guys still there, or are you bored to death and you left the chat? Okay, this is the very last attempt to explain what I was trying to explain. Learn message. No, I think it's my MIDI control which is sending some random message which I don't understand. So this is a problem. Okay. Anyway, I'm so sorry about this. There is this thing that is called automation quick access, which I actually use all the time, which basically allows you to set up a fader as a way to control your volume automation or anything that you want on the automation tab. But for some really weird reason is not working right now. I think it's something related to my MIDI control, which is sending some random MIDI messages with a perfect timing. So we're gonna move right away to the second tip. It should be on read, which it is, but it's not working. I see that Danielle is asking if it should be on read. It is on read. Yeah. I never read it either. I don't know what's happening. Let's try and unplug it. Yeah, I agree with Alberto that it shouldn't really matter because you have to put it on touch or something anyway afterwards. Shall we try that again? Or should I move on? Let's try that again now that I unplugged it and replugged it in. On. Let's see. Learn message. Now you see that every time I learn it, it's like something else is moving. So I can't work out what it is. It's some other MIDI controller that I got that is sending MIDI messages for some reason. Anyway, I'll explain you what I was gonna say. And so basically, doing that, you can set up any MIDI CC that you learned as a way to control your volume, and you would basically be able to use that fader as a score mixer would do with a console fader. One problem that comes with that is that if you, for example, set up your mod wheel, you don't want that to default to automation quick access. And the reason is simply that you still want to be able to use your mod wheel for regular mod wheel duties, shall we shall we say. And the way you do that is that you can keep it off. And I believe, if I remember well, there is a shortcut which is Control Option Command A to toggle it on and off. So you basically can keep it turned on, off, and then turn it on when you want to use it for this purpose. I don't remember. I never remember this shortcut simply because I got a button set up on my iPad on my Logic Remote to do just that, and that comes very handy. And as anything in Logic, you can obviously go to Key Command, Edit, and then you can type in automation quick access, toggle automation quick access on and off, and you can basically learn a new assignment if you prefer to assign it to something else, and that's something very handy to have. And so this was the very first tip that I had, although it didn't go as planned. But anyway, let's see what happens with the next ones. Now I'm worried that my MIDI devices are gonna send some random MIDI messages, so that's not good. But I don't know what else to do. Let's keep going. Let's see what happened. Another thing that I had is I wanted to talk a little bit about the MIDI event editor. On this empty project, I just opened up my default string section. This is the string section that I use 95% of times. This is a combination of Cinematic Studio Strings 2, which is a pretty old library, but it's still my go-to library. Cinematic Studio, the new Cinematic Studio Strings, and Cinematic Studio Solo Strings. And I normally blend all these things together. And what's fun is that it's basically all the same developer, but the new Cinematic Studio series has a rather different sound compared to the original Cinematic Studio Strings 2. And Cinematic Studio String 2 is a much larger section. It's sort of more lush sounding, whereas Cinematic Studio Series is more of a chamber ensemble. It's not chamber, it's still kind of big. I love writing with Cinematic Studio String 2. I like the sound a lot, and it's less convoluted because the Cinematic Studio series has a very complicated way to use the advanced legato, but it sounds incredibly realistic. So I like to write with Cinematic Studio String 2 and then move the region that I just created to Cinematic Studio Strings and use that instead. And I just wanted to, I don't know, maybe write something live or something like that to explore a little bit, a few cool things that you can do with the MIDI event editor. Let's write something, I don't know, very slow, like this phrase that I was playing on. One octave higher. All right, I'm just gonna, see what I can come up with. All right, not particularly original, whatever, just a little string phrase. Let's see how many wrong things I did. Okay. See, I basically have. Oh, by the way, this is another very handy shortcut. When you're on the piano roll, Command Y swap between all the MIDI events. So here you have expression and modulation and the velocities, of course. I never write vibrato right away. I typically like to do a second pass. So I could do with some quantizing, but I won't quantize it just now. I'll quantize just the very first beat. Otherwise, sometimes the playback doesn't work. So now I'm going to do a second pass with vibrato. All right, then you can, use the glue tool, and here, if you go again on the piano roll, you see that I added some vibrato. Okay, and what you can do, you can copy and paste it, option drag it to make a copy on the violin 2. And by the way, another cool tip here is that to change quickly the name of the regions, if you want them to take the region name, if you want to take the track name, you can simply go on function and name regions by track name, and it changes it to violin 2. That's really useful because when you are on the piano editor, you can tell which version, which region you're working on by seeing it in here, and that would be violin 1 if I didn't change the name. So that's quite important. And now, of course, it's never nice to have exactly the same region in here. So I would probably play it in again. If you don't want to play it in again, you can humanize it a little bit. That's something that I do quite often. I have a screen set on number 2, on screen set number 2, where I got a humanized preset that I have prepared, and it's here. Typically, you can command A and select a region just to see what it's doing. I got this just randomizes the position a little bit. You can operate, and it's changing the length a little bit, not by much, although you need to be careful because it might mess up your legato. But anyway, it's good enough for the demonstration purposes. Okay, and now if you go on the MIDI event editor, which is right here, you see that you have loads of information, and this is just one region. This is everything that I did, from the notes to all the different MIDI CC, that I movements that I made while playing it in. And this is a very useful list to have, but you need to filter it somehow. And I want to explore a few things that you can do with it. First of all, you can get rid of everything here, and you'll have just the notes. Okay. By the way, you can play them in. So that's quite useful if you want to do some very analytical editing, although not very intuitive, I would say, but it can come handy, and at the same time you can use the controller. So you have here CC2 for vibrato, 1 mod wheel, and 11 for expression. And let's say that I want to play a viola line here. What did I play? Okay, let's see. Let's say that A flat is an F minor, yeah? So, say That was the wrong octave, by the way, but I kept rolling with it, so that's what I wanted to play. All right, more or less, not the most inspiring string writing, but just for demonstration purposes. And you can tell that I didn't do a great job at messaging the dynamics in a way that is consistent with the violins one and two. So one thing that I do quite often is this: you keep the track on region. You toggle the automation window and you go on region automation, which, by the way, was another thing that I wanted to talk about. We'll go there later. And if you click it in here, you can see everything you played in for every instrument. And this is the closest that we have to Cubase multilane, which I think is one of the most wanted features from Cubase for every Logic user. And you can open them up here. And one thing that I do quite often when I play different parts, but I want to keep the same dynamic overall, is to get rid of whatever I wrote just now, okay? And then I go on violin 1, open the MIDI event, get rid of the notes and everything else, really, although there is nothing else. I Command A to copy them all, and then go on the same region and paste them in. And here you have it. There is also the vibrato, although here it wasn't shown. And so now it should be more consistent. Same dynamics everywhere. All right, and a pretty cool thing that you can do is that sometimes you don't want to copy all the MIDI controllers, or you want to, for example, get rid of a MIDI controller which is bothering you. This happens to me all the time when I import stuff from Sibelius, Doric, or whatever notation program where you have a bunch of MIDI controllers that you want to get rid of. And with controller selected, it's pretty annoying if you, for example, if you need to select all the ones, all the module events, because you need to go on one by one. And an incredibly useful shortcut that there is in Logic is Shift S, and it works in a bunch of scenarios. In the MIDI event editor, the way it works is that you can click on, for example, vibrato, okay? And then Shift S selects all similar events. So for example, I can get rid of just the vibrato event on the viola part, because maybe I want to play another part in. And now vibrato, it's completely, see, it's not in here. And in fact, if I go on CC2, the lane, it's empty. And that's quite useful. I use that all the time. And another typical use of the MIDI event editor, although I can't show it right now because I don't have a Dorico score to import. If you import it from Dorico specifically, because they still didn't implement a way to control a little better the kind of data that you want to export to MIDI, is that you basically get all sort of different MIDI channels, and the stuff gets when you import the MIDI regions, they're most of them don't play because are on channels different than one or on whatever you're using. And one thing that you can do there exactly the same way is that you can select anything that is on MIDI channel 1, and you, for example, you can change it to 2, or if it's on 2, you can change it back to 1 in a way that it will play back. And so that's another quite useful thing to do with the MIDI event editor. How are we doing right now? Was that useful at all? I hope so. Let's see. I'm going through my list. I did 1.5, let's say, because the automation quick access was a bit of a failure. But anyway, it's already 5. Wow. Okay. All right. Another couple of things. Shift S, nice. Oh yeah, another. I'll tell you right away another way that I use Shift S all the time. So let's use the light ensemble from Cinematic Studio 3. That this is something that I use all the time to basically, work on my harmony. And let's just play a chord, okay? On here, I don't know. Let's just play a simple chord progression. We did a C minor, F minor thing, okay? Very slow tempo. All right, sounds awful, but anyway, if you open the piano roll, okay, you hit in here, and sometimes, especially if you have a big orchestral arrangement, you have a lot of notes, meaning that stuff are duplicated on a number of regions and a number of other instruments. So let's copy this in a few other octaves. Okay. Let's say, imagine that you have something at the double basses, okay, as well, and here too. And same. All right. Yeah, this is not the best example, but you'll see why where I'm getting. Okay. Let's say that I want to change these chords from minor to major. Obviously, if it's pretty easy. You need to get every third. That's not an harmony lesson, but you get every third of the chord and you put it back to major. Okay. If you have it on multiple octaves, you need to do it for every single note. Instead, look at. And another thing that you can do, obviously, if you can click on the MIDI on the piano roll, and it would select all the events horizontally. But a better way to do it is, for example, clicking on E flat and then Shift S selects all the E flats in that MIDI region. You can put them back up, an off tone, a semitone, and Shift S with all the A flat, inverted back one tone, and now it's major. All right. So basically, what it does, it selects every note which has the same note name independently from the MIDI octave, which I think it's pretty useful. I use it all the time. All right. Let's see what else I have. Okay. Oh yeah. This is completely unrelated. As I said, this is something that I sketched out, pretty quickly. There is no order to it, but hopefully you'll get something useful out of it. The thing I want to talk about is mixer undo and redo. Okay, so you probably noticed that if you have these option unselected, unchecked, which is basically the default logic. If you do, let's see, I'm working on this 3-track. Let's use this marvelous example here. Okay, if I change the volume of, if I change any of the mixer events of one of these tracks, okay. For example, I mute it and then I click on Command Z. Okay, it doesn't work. The undo and redo only work on whatever happened in the main window, which is not what you want. And the way to fix that, it's edit and you include mixer undo steps in project undo history. And now if you click on Command Z, it brings back this fader up, which is super useful if you prefer to keep it unchecked because, for example, you only want your undos to apply to whatever happened in the main window. I never do it, so I can't remember, but there is a way to, here, you need to go on edit and mixer undo and redo. So there are specific mixer undo and redo functions, which I think is a bit cumbersome. I always keep it on all my templates because, you know, I tend to mix while I write, or at least I tend to do a few basic adjustments to my mix while I write. So for me, it's important to have that. Let's get some water. All right, Alberto, you didn't know that? I'm sure that you have lots of things that I don't know. So if you want to give any suggestion, please feel free. What else? Oh, actually, this is funny because the thing that is next on my list is something that Alberto told me on Facebook, which I was trying to work on before. This is I found out pretty recently, and it's pretty crazy that I didn't know it. Okay, so if you double click on whatever region, although you can change the behavior of that, my default is that it opens the piano roll down here. Okay, and I always found very annoying that if you want to record something else, okay, for example, my viola part, okay, the moment that I started recording here, it doesn't let you see the piano roll, which is a pretty useful reference to have. So if I start recording the viola here, as soon as I touch something, it goes back to the viola part, which is very annoying. But what you can do is use this link button. Since the link it's on, every time that you move track, it goes to the other, to the MIDI track that you are visualizing. The moment you turn it off, it basically keeps selected, keeps on whatever you want to keep visualized, and then now I can record and work on my viola track while keeping the piano. Oops, no. I messed it up again. The live stream isn't going very well, right? Anyway, there you go. Why isn't it working? Alberto, you told me that. Why this isn't working? It's the MIDI, right? I used it before. Do I need to keep it on a separate piano roll window? Maybe. I'm not sure. Anyway, I thought that that's how you did it, and it worked before. Okay. I'm pretty sure it's this. Maybe I shouldn't have used the transport control. Okay. Let's move on that. Click with the mouse once after modulation is touched. Oh, right, I see. Yes. Okay. So that's how you do it. Click with the mouse once after the modulation is touched. I see. Yeah, so if I want to, I click on this region and then I unlink it, all right? And then if I go near, it should keep. Let's move this, let's delete that. Right, and now it's, no, and now I need to repress it and it will keep. No. Everything is weird today. I don't know why. I use this loads of time. I'm not sure why it's not working. All right, this live stream probably won't stay on my YouTube channel, but we've been using it as a test. All right. Let's move to the next one. And then, Alberto, you can get in touch with me and help me out to understand why it wasn't working. All right. Okay. Oh, by the way, another thing that is nice to have are MIDI alternatives. This is something that you need to set up in the track header, and once you click it on track header components, you make sure that you have track alternative set up. Okay, here I have it checked. That's how you do it. And then you can, for example, either duplicate it. Okay, now you have the alternative B. And for example, if I wanted this F minor to be a flat major instead, can do it and see how it sounds. All right, well, it doesn't need to be a flat major. It could just be A, C, A flat anyway. And if I like the other one better, I can go back to A, or you can, you know, do a new alternative and play something completely different. Okay, or maybe just another take of the same thing. Okay, I'm not redoing it all, but you get my point. And I still have the A to go back to, and that's really useful. And by the way, this is, and since I talked about the track alternative, let's talk about the session alternative, because that's another thing that I use all the time. So if I wanted to save this project and create a new alternative, okay, you can. Let's first of all edit alternative. Okay, this is the alternative. The first alternative by default takes the name of the template that I created it with on. So I can call this alternative MIDI editor 1. Okay, and then I can create a new alternative, and I can call it MIDI editor 2. And by the way, I use this all the time when I score TV shows, movies, adverts, that kind of stuff. I don't tend to score with MIDI alternatives, like one MIDI alternative per cue, but it's pretty useful to have it, for example, on a reel-to-reel basis. So you have one session for every reel, and maybe 3, 4 different. Every reel can be 3, 4 cues, or if it's less reel, if the film is divided into less reels, you can have more cues, and that's pretty handy to have. And for example, if I want to, or for adverts, I keep track of all the versions that I did using MIDI alternative. Let's change something up here. I don't know. Let's the viola up 1 octave, just to have something different. And you can save it, and you can go back to the alternative before. So it's a way to use it in different versions. I noticed that while I'm streaming, my computer is much slower than normal. So this must be related to OBS sucking a bit of power. But anyway. And one thing that I was actually talking with a friend about using alternatives, session alternatives to score films. So to use one alternative for every cue. And I do it all the time, and he doesn't. And he said that the reason why he doesn't is that he doesn't like that he can't open a project using a specific alternative. So if he wants to go to whatever queue, like if he wants to open Q2, every time that he opens the project, he will always go to the last queue that he wrote. And that's not true at all. There is a very easy way to open a project with whatever alternative you want. If I open the project that I was just working on, which is here, Media Editor, and you click without double clicking on the project, and you click on spacebar, it gives you a preview of the project, and here you can open whatever alternative you want or a backup, which is the way to open a session from a backup if you have a crash or something. So for example, I can decide to open this project from Media Editor 1, which is the first alternative. If instead of an alternative you had a queue, that's pretty much how you would do it. I'm getting an error here for some reason. All right, I don't know. Still telling me the stream's current bitrate is lower than the recommended. I don't know. Can you still hear me and see me okay? Hope so. Charles? Thanks, Charles. That's very kind of you. All right, so you see that I open Media Alternative, the Media Editor 1 as an alternative, and you can use this for queues if you have this 1M1, M1, 1M2, which is a typical way to call queues in a film. You can do it just fine. So I think that's a great way to do it. Okay, let's see what else. I think I maybe have time for a couple of other tips, and then we'll close this one. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I had this region-based automation, and that was something that we're just talking about. So I really already show you this, that if you have the automation set on track, you have basically just the standard automation of the track. Whereas on a MIDI track, actually on an audio track as well, if you click on region automation, you can basically have all the MIDI controllers displaying vertically, and you can tweak them however you want, and that's a pretty good way to visualize them. As I was saying before, as a Logic user who also uses Cubase from time to time, the multiple MIDI lanes in Cubase piano roll is something that I really like, and I think it should be the default on every digital audio workstation. And we don't get that in Logic, meaning that if you open the piano roll of this region, you can swap between MIDI lanes, but you can't have them all open at the same time and tweak them accordingly. And this is the closest thing that we got to the Cubase multi-lane editor. So that's a good thing to know. Yeah, another thing that I use quite often is this. So if you are on if you open a MIDI region and you right click on it, you can decide whatever color to base your MIDI notes on. I like it defaulting to region colors, but you can have it on velocity colors, and this is basically color coding the region depending on how loud you're playing it. This is actually another one of those controls that I have set up on my Logic remote on the iPad, and that's pretty useful to have. Although I prefer to have it defaulting on region color simply for this reason. Now they're all blue, but let's say that this was a brass part, which in my templates are not surprisingly yellow. And if I these two regions selected, and I open them, I can, you know, see my brass line and my string line and adjust the harmonies accordingly, and I can have a better overall picture of what's happening in the piece. But sometimes it is useful to have them color coded depending on velocity, so that's quite useful. What else? Just gonna just choose one other tip, and then I'm gonna close it. But feel free to ask me question if you want. Oh yeah, this is another thing that I found out pretty recently. This is related to audio, so we don't have any audio here. Let me just import, I don't know, some random Apple loops. This is probably a sound thing. Okay, just two random loops. Okay, let's see what I got here. Okay, so just a drum kit. One thing that is very useful. I'm started to use a lot of audio when doing you know, trailer track or sound designy things, because I really like to have you know, to if you get like sound packs that have rises and hits and booms, that kind of stuff. Uh, Rather than having them on a contact instrument, I quite like to have the waveform, because I can drop. Oh, by the way, this audio track is mono. That's why it was sounding weird. Anyway, oh no, it isn't. Sorry. It's a very good way to. It's very good to see the waveform, and so that you can align it to wherever you need to hit the point. And so it's pretty annoying if you need to do fade ins and outs. The way to do it is that you need to open the tool menu, and then you need to select A, which is the fade tool. Okay, and then you can you know, zoom right in and do this basically, which doesn't take long, but you know, there is a faster way to do it. If you open again your preferences, but you go on, let's see what it is. Editing, and you can pointer tool in tracks provide fade tool clicked zones. Okay, if you check this one, basically as soon as you move to the upper part of the track, you have built-in fades, which is pretty nice. Okay, and there are other things that you can set it up to do. For example, but I keep them off because I don't really like them, but are useful to know. For example, you can have it defaulting to a marquee tool. For example, if you're on here on the lower part, it would move it to a marquee tool, which is useful because you can, for example, select this part and then click on the automation and turn down just this bit, which can be useful. But I have my marquee tool sometimes selected as my right click tool, so I prefer having it that way and keep these unchecked. But the fade tool is really good if you're working with audio regions. And in a similar fashion, another thing that I like to do is to have this drag defaulting to crossfade. So basically now if I move one audio region to the other one, it would cover it up. Basically it would replace it. Whereas if you put the drag to crossfade, it automatically creates fades for you, crossfades for you. This is gonna sound awful because it's just two audio loops, but oh yes, of course. Okay. All right. So that's quite handy, I think. Yes, Cubase does have the fade tool on by default. Logic doesn't, and I think the reason it doesn't is that basically on Apple tool on Apple loops, if you don't have this selected, you basically have the option to loop. If you go on the upper part of the region, it lets you loop it how many times you want. Okay. Whereas if you have this one on, it gives the fade tool. which I think it's handier, simply because, first of all, I don't loop as much, but if you want to loop, you can just Command R and copy and paste the track. Or another way to loop it is that you can go on the region properties here and click on loop, and we'll loop it indefinitely. So I like having that one better. I think that's it. I have many more selected, but we did 1 hour, so I think it's about the time that I stop this one. Do you have any questions? I hope we had some technical issues, but I hope I did manage to put some info in there despite the problems. All right. If you don't have any question, then I'm gonna close this one in here. Thank you so much for doing this. Alberto is saying the loop function is still there right below the fade tool. What do you mean? So if I have this one selected, like I do, okay. Oh yeah, you're right. Never noticed that. Yeah, absolutely. So there's no point. Yeah, you're right, Alberto. Never noticed that. Again, that's not something that I use very often. So, but yeah, thank you so much for joining in to do this a little bit of test for me. I know where to improve next time. And I'll see you tomorrow at the Krotos audio live stream. We're doing it at 6 p.m. UK time, and I'm gonna write a track from scratch, which is pretty scary, but hopefully enjoyable for you to watch. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.